I'm going to give a few examples of what phonological awareness is and talk about the different parts. So, the first part is counting the number of words in a sentence. So this is what you might call print awareness. So if you have a sentence, let's say, the cat is on the mat. That's a very common first sentence that some students will learn in a reading book. You count the number of words. So the student's able to say, that's word 1. Cat, 2. Is, 3. Own, 4. Mat, 5. 6. Mat. Okay. Very simple. That's just the idea that students recognize that there are spaces between words, basically recognizing what a word is, and understanding that you read at a word level. Then we have syllable counting, segmenting, and blending. And so syllables are what you hear when you are reading words. So for example, we have the word cat. That's one syllable. Cat. If you clap, you only hear cat. You don't break the parts of the word up very much. But then we have the word, let's say, donut. I'm hungry this morning. Shouldn't be. Donut. You hear 2 syllables in that. You hear dough and you hear nut. Donut. 2 syllables. Then you hear the word, let's say the word Emily, my name. Lee. Clap 3 times. There are 3 syllables. Emily. My daughter's name is Ellie. Ellie. 2 syllables. Okay. So being able to break those apart and put them together. And a lot of times in kindergarten and first grade classrooms, teachers will do this using what's called a soundboard, which is where there's different letters. Sometimes they're magnetic. Sometimes it's like a felt board that they do in front of the class. And they'll take the syllables apart. Sometimes they'll mark even on a worksheet where they put the syllables. And so that's segmenting. That means breaking apart syllables and then putting them together. So, for example, let's say Emily. Teacher might say, Emily. Put it together. And the students say Emily. That's called blending. And that's really common, especially in pre-K, kindergarten, even some first grade classrooms. Again, this should be a skill that's done very easily and quickly, and I do recommend it at the very beginning of school, but you do see it sometimes in schools up through about the first grade. Okay, then we have onset and rhyme. So this is where students can understand that words have the same beginning or ending sounds. Onset means beginning sounds, and rhyme means same ending sounds. So for example, if we have the word, going back to the food analogy, we have chocolate. The student understands that starts with the ch sound. Now the student may not be able to recognize that sound yet, especially the students very young or in writing, but the student can look and say, oh, those have the same sounds. Chocolate and cheese, they have the same sounds. Again, the student may not even be able to say those sounds yet, and that's fine. But the student can recognize that those have the same beginning sounds. Then we have rhyme. Now rhyme is the ending sound. So, for example, the word cat and bat rhyme. And when you look at the literature in English, you may see rhyme written in 2 ways. It's the same thing. Most of the professional literature, it's R-I-M-E, but sometimes just in everyday use, we use R-H-Y-M-E. And in the English-speaking culture at large, there's kind of an obsession with rhymes. A lot of children learn how to rhyme from what we call nursery rhymes. So for example, the most famous one's called Mother Goose. And I'll put a link to some rhymes in the description box if you're interested in this. But they're rhymes that usually tell a story. They're very old, and they have rhyming words in them. And that's how a lot of students learn how to rhyme. Dr. Seuss is another example. If anyone knows of Dr. Seuss books, like Red Fish, Blue Fish, One Fish, Two Fish. That's a very famous book. The Cat in the Hat. Again, cat and hat rhyme, and so those books has a lot of rhyming words. And this is often used in speech therapy as well. That's usually where you see if students do have phonological awareness problem. Many times that's addressed in speech therapy. But the research shows a few things about rhyming, and this is why I want to talk about this a little. Most cultures do not rhyme. In most parts of Latin America, most Spanish-speaking countries, and in Eastern Asian countries, I don't think any of them have a culture of rhyming. Those students still learn how to read. And if you are a teacher teaching a student who is learning English, or if you is from another culture, or if you are a parent of a child who's learning English, you may be tempted to think that it's really important for the child to rhyme. Because again, culturally, we have this idea in this country that students have to rhyme. And that's because phonological awareness is so important. But it's really not necessary that the child's able to produce rhymes. So in other words, if you say, "What rhymes with cat?" and the child's like, "I don't know." And I've had a lot of students who say "can" because in their brains, they think that, the C sound is there. They get onset confused with rhyme, which developmentally is very appropriate when you're a young child. The child may not know the difference between beginning and ending sounds yet, and that's not a huge problem. As long as the child can, or the adult, whoever's learning English, can identify that they have the same beginning or the same ending sounds, that is sufficient. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time trying to get children to make rhymes. I think this also is kind of fun for a lot of people. They like to make rhymes, and then if that's something your child enjoys, go for it. But it's really not necessary. As long as that child can identify that the words that have the same ending sounds, that child is fine. There doesn't need to be a huge intervention based on rhyme. And that's something that in this culture, a lot of people don't understand. Okay. And then we have identifying, blending, and segmenting sounds. So for example, in the word cat, the teacher might say there are 3 sounds in cat. Now, sounds are different from syllables. Syllables are sounds put together. But sounds are individual. They're the smallest part of a word. So for example, in the word cat, going back to cat, we have cat. So the student's able to pull that apart. And the word cat, what do you hear? Well, I hear cat. So this is how we segment sounds, and we put them together. So this is just a very, very brief overview. If you are really interested in this, I'm going to put a link to Reading Rockets in the description box. I feel like in these videos, they're so brief, and they're brief for a reason because people are busy. But it's hard to show a lot of examples, and I feel like people need more examples. So I'm going to put a link in the description box to Reading Rockets, which is a really good resource, and it has videos of teaching these skills to children if you're more interested in this. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the exceptions to phonological awareness, because every language does not have phonological awareness. So in Chinese and in Japanese and any other language that does not have an alphabet, that those languages do not have phonological awareness in the same way that we think of phonological awareness. It's not based on sounds in that case. What it is based on is vision and meaning. So instead of phonological awareness, there's more of a system of morphological awareness. But what that means is that it's based on looking. So for example, in Chinese, there are parts of characters that express meaning. It's important for the children to recognize those different parts. So that's kind of the equivalent of phonological awareness, but again, it's not based on sound. So we call it different. We call it either orthographic awareness, or I've heard morphographic awareness, because it's often based on meaning. So people from these cultures who are learning English oftentimes don't have good knowledge about phonological awareness. They come from these language backgrounds. The research shows that for these students, it's very, very helpful to have a background in phonological awareness in English. Catherine McBride, and I have her work in the description. I have a source for Catherine McBride in the description, but she's a really fantastic researcher, and I'm going to reference her in all of these videos because she does amazing work about language differences and how children learn in different alphabet systems and different writing systems. And she is based in Hong Kong, so her whole work is based on Chinese, studying Chinese systems of writing and learning how to read and comparing that to English systems of learning how to read. And what she found was that when children learn phonological awareness while they're learning English, especially if they're from one of these backgrounds, it's extremely helpful. She did a study that found that that students really benefit from learning phonological awareness. So when you think about it, it makes sense because this is a foreign concept, and so it's something they have to explicitly learn pretty in-depthly. And they may need more time with it than other students. So yeah, that's all for today. Please check out the links in the descriptions, and I really hope this is helpful. As always, if you have any kind of questions, or you'd like to find out more about me and what I'm working with, please message me, please comment, please ask questions. My goal for this is to help you to understand how to reach your student, whether that's your child or your student in a school, better, and help that child to read. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and until next time, keep learning.